in the DMV. One of the deans of DC Sports, David Aldridge, joins us, reacting to Terry McLaurin. David, good afternoon. Thanks for the time.
My pleasure, guys. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, you were there. Just give me your first reaction. What's kind of at first blush? What'd you make of it?
Obviously we're getting kind of close to camp here, so the urgency is picked up, and I don't think Terry was acting. I think he is a little frustrated and a little, upset about how the negotiations have gone. I also think that, pressure bursts pipes, right? And so the more pressure one side feels over the other tends to get things going. And so now he has served deep into the Commanders' ad court, and now it is on them to return the serve, right?
Yeah.
You either do that with a bigger offer, a better offer, or you start waging your own PR campaign, right? And so look, all I know is we all know what Terry McLaurin's been about since he's been here. I think we know who he is. And to me, it doesn't mean you give him every dollar. It doesn't mean you pay him more than you pay, Jamar Chase. I'm not suggesting that at all. But I do think that he has earned, if anybody has earned goodwill on the part of this organization, even though these guys are new, and I get that. I understand this is a new front office. So they weren't here for most of Terry's time here. But they know the track record. They know what he did last season. They know how important he was for Jaden Daniels. So I just can't imagine this does not get done before camp, because it's not just about missing camp time. It's about being, physically ramping up to play professional football. I don't care what kind of shape you're in. There's no way that you can simulate that other than being on a field doing it, right? And so anybody who misses time in camp is susceptible to the kinds of injuries, and especially at a position like wide receiver where there's a lot of explosive moves that are being made, to the types of injuries that keep you out for weeks, and you don't want that. And Terry's been very durable since he's been here, and you don't want it to start now. You want to hit the ground running with a much tougher schedule than you had last season.
Talking with David Aldridge here on Grant and Danny. Toby Altizer sitting in for GP today. Were you a little surprised that you got the answers that you did from Terry today, David? Because we were talking before the show, and even at the start of the show, Danny and I were talking about how, okay, we were expecting to maybe hear, obviously to talk about the contract, but we were expecting maybe toe the company line and say, hey, I don't want to comment on the negotiations. But to hear him come out and immediately say, yeah, I've been frustrated, I've been disappointed. Were you a little surprised to hear that from Terry?
Not really. Not really. Clearly, it's been out there for a while, right? And he said, all the stuff you've heard about me being frustrated, that came from me, right? He was very upfront about that because he has been frustrated. So I'm not surprised. I mean, again, timing is everything. It's a week before camp starts, and there's an urgency to it now that everybody understands, and I think it doesn't mean that Terry's not frustrated, but it means making that clear and obvious to everybody puts pressure back on the organization, and maybe it should be on the organization, right? But I would say this, I understand I understand organizations trying to hold the company line, especially for a guy that's 30 years old. I get that. I do understand that. I also understand that we've been told time and time again, well, the blueprint is to build as good a team around Jaden Daniels as possible before he becomes before you have to extend him and give him $300 million or whatever the number is going to be in a couple of years that you have to give him. Okay. Well, I would say Terry McLaurin is a pretty important foundational piece to that, right? Like if you want to build the best team around your young quarterback as possible, I don't know how you don't have your best receiver locked up for the duration of that time before you have to extend Jaden Daniels. Then in 3 years, you're going to have a different conversation, right? Like if Terry's still here in 3 years, he's 33 years old now. Now, that's different. I get that. I do. But right now, it's hard for me to say it's good business to be as stringent as possible on the numbers. I would say if there's a tie in terms of talent, size, age, production, all of those things where Terry may not be as young as Amon-Ra St. Brown or as tall as DK Metcalf, right? I get that. But the tie to me is, but he's been the stand-up guy for this organization when there was nothing to stand up for. And he never caused you a moment of pain or embarrassment. He's been nothing but professional since he's been here, and he's been nothing but productive since he's been here. And I think that has to count for something.
Yeah, I think that's, and David Aldridge with us here on Grant and Danny. Tobes in for GP. I think that's one of the essential points. We've had a lot of folks who've already called David. People are tweeting us about this. Kind of to that end, this is the guy that you hold up as the example, right? When they're talking about the commander tag, or you're looking for such and such in the draft. Here's when you show up on campus as a rookie, or as an undrafted free agent, or a veteran, you just follow 17 around, you do what he does. And because of that, it's more than just, the production on the field and where it ranks. The point is, it means more to you maybe than it might to the next guy. I think that's the best leverage in a time where, quite frankly, players don't have as much because the way the CBA is and kind of the rules are set up for the teams. That's kind of the best punchback from Terry's side. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's where it is. I mean, I think that's, to me, again, him. He's got a track record here, and it's not a track record full of injuries, or it's not a track record full of, embarrassing moments for the organization, but he's too talented to let go. Like, there's been none of that with Terry, right? Like, there's just been none of it. He's done everything that you would ask a guy to be, to do, and he's been everything you would ask a guy to be. And so to me, it's, again, I'm not trying to negotiate for either side here, but I think there's a number that's less than what Jamar Chase is making, but maybe more than what some other guys ahead of Terry McLaurin are currently making. So, I think you get there and you get this done and you get them into camp and start fresh with, with no holdouts for a team that really has high expectations going into the season.
He seemed pretty miffed at the idea of age being a major part and part of the reason why maybe this negotiation is so difficult. And, him going into the year, going to turn 30 pretty soon into the season. How many more years do you think he can be productive? And do you think it's something that maybe that is a big part of this in terms of the years of the contract? We talked about this a little bit yesterday, saying, maybe it's something where he wants 4 years and the Commanders are willing to do 3 or something along that line. And maybe that's where the holdup is.
Well, I mean, I'm not a contract expert. I don't know what, whether it's 3 years, 4 years, how much money is guaranteed in year 3 or year 4 for that matter, if it goes that far. Like, all I can tell you is he took a screen and took it to the house in Detroit in the playoff game. He took a slant 60 yards against the Eagles in the NFC Championship game. He looks fine to me. I'll put it that way. It doesn't look like he's slowing down any. Nobody could catch him from behind in a playoff game on the road, in back-to-back weeks. So he looked pretty good to me. Now, again, I understand the conversation is different 3 years from now, but until he shows you he's not the guy that his number or that his salary would support, I don't know that you can't predict it like it's a certainty, right? Like you can't predict either way. So you're again, you fall back on, all right, if we're going to gamble to overpay over, year 31 and 32, who are we gambling on? We're gambling on a stand-up guy who hasn't missed a game in 4 years and who's made a series of really mediocre quarterbacks look good until Jaden Daniels got here. And then he made a really good quarterback look even better, right? So I don't, so to me, I just don't think you can fall back on age now that it's time to pay the guy. See, this is the problem I have. This is the problem I have with the Nationals. Like, they do this all the time. Like, a guy puts up numbers, and when it's time to pay him, they go, well, we can't pay you that. That will break our salary structure. Well, okay.
Sorry for producing.
Yeah, we can't pay you Bryce Harper. We can't pay you Anthony Rendon. We can't pay you Juan Soto, what you're worth. And then you've shown you're actually worth twice what we offered you on the open market. You got almost 2 times what we offered you. But that's, it's always, well, we can't pay you because it's too much money, and it just doesn't work for the team. And I see other teams all the time getting their core guys extended and signed. All of them. Like all year after year after year, the Braves signed another guy to an 8-year deal. You know what I mean? And the Nats can't get anybody signed. And so you don't want the Commanders. Look, they got Sam Cosmi done. Smart, good business. This is smart and good business too. You need to get it done.
David, this, not too long ago, Adam Peters could basically, maybe for this fan base, walk on water. And if he made a decision, right, and you were like, hey, I don't quite understand why they signed Javon Kinlaw. Like they would snap at you like an angry alligator, right? And now this is kind of that first crossroads where public opinion might dip. Probably an impossible to quantify or answer question, but how much damage might this do if this, split kind of continues here?
I mean, I think very little, to be honest with you. Look, you can't say let AP cook, and then when he cooks, say, well, no, not that way.
Not those ingredients, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
You know what I mean? So either you trust him or you don't trust him, right? And that's where I think that's why I think this needs to get done. Because if you look at what Adam Peters has done since he's been here, you would go, yeah, it's pretty good, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty good. And you would say the same about Terry McLaurin. So what are we talking about here? You're good at what you do. He's good at what he does. Let's figure this out. Like, these are not – nobody has to prove themselves on this one, right? And so you have to be – I think you have to be a little – I don't know what's the word. I don't think you can be naive as a fan. This is business, right? Like, this is how – these are the decisions that decide whether you're a championship organization or not. Either you sign the right people for the right amount of money and the right amount of time, or you don't. Or you draft the right people, or you trade for the right people. So far, Adam Peters has done a remarkable job putting a really good team together in a really short period of time, because almost all of his decisions have been good ones. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this, but I also have to give McLaurin the benefit of the doubt because of who he's been. So this leads me to believe that this should not be a protracted, long holdout when you're both smart guys and you both know what's up. And you got to figure it out. Like, none of us get what we want when we go to the boss and say, I deserve a raise. Nobody does, right? Nobody gets every dime that they're asking for or every perk that they want. But you got to, at some point, sign the contract. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and a team can't talk about family and character and this is who we want in the locker room and then not take care of the guy that personifies all of that in your locker room. Like, again, if you're going to overpay anybody, it should be Terry McLaurin, okay? Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that, to me, is where the rubber's got to meet the road, and this has got to get settled before next Tuesday.
Talking with David Aldridge here on Grant and Danny. Toby Altizer sitting in for Grant Paulson. What was your thought going into today about when this thing would get done or if it was going to get done? And did the press conference today change any of that?
I have no expectations in terms of contracts because everybody's contract is different. What I want out of a contract is different than what would you want out of a contract, right? We all have different things. We're at different points of our lives. So I never prejudged that this should have been done a month ago. Most of the time, it usually comes down to the end, right? Most negotiations get down to the end, because again, when there's no more time, you're more amenable to making sure you get the deal done. So that's pretty standard stuff. Terry is not one to emote. I thought his emotions were genuine today. I got the sense that he is very frustrated by this, that he had hoped that this would get done beforehand. I don't know that it's going to bring toxicity or anything into the locker room. I think people understand that this is negotiations at the top of the wide receiver food chain, as it should be, right? Because he's proven he deserves to be at the top of the chain. And it gets hard sometimes. But again, if you call me a week from today and this isn't done yet, now we got a problem. Now you got a real problem because now you're missing camp time. And I think that the Commanders have to understand that, and they do know this because these are smart people, success is very fleeting in the NFL. And you have to do everything possible to make things as easy as possible for your team to hit the ground running. You do not want a guy missing 10 days of camp and then trying to be ready to play football in 2.5 weeks, 3.5 weeks when he hasn't put the pads on in 4 months. That's just not how this works. And you need that camp time to get up to speed, figuratively and literally, to get ready to play football, because that's been the problem with some of the old regimes here, is that they didn't actually play football in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
You have to actually play football and hit and be hit to get ready. There's no other, you can't simulate it. That's the only way you're going to get ready. And so Terry's got to get ready too. No matter who you are, you have to get ready. And that's by being on the field.
Is there any chance this continues to escalate and everybody keeps playing hardball and they're dug in and he doesn't end up playing here?
I would be very surprised if that happened, because of the signal it would send to the rest of the team. You can send signals in different ways. Like, you can send signals by paying a guy, and you can send signals by not paying a guy, right? And so if people look at McLaurin, and again, you look at what he did throughout his career here and what he's done, what he did last season, and the type of person he has been, it's hard for me to justify, well, we had to let him go because he was asking for too much money, but we're still all about the core values of the people that do the hard work should get rewarded, and our best players are going to get taken care of. I'm looking at you like, well, you didn't take care of that guy. And he's the most stand-up guy here. You know what I mean? So I think you run a risk. That's a big risk to kind of, telling your franchise quarterback, yeah, we know he's your guy, but we couldn't pay him. Sorry. I don't think that's the best message to send to your franchise quarterback. So again, I'm not saying break the bank. What I'm saying is, you may need to go a little above slot here, as they say in baseball.
Yeah. I mean, closing out on that, DA, like, how much do you think that has to play into the decision here where, yeah, maybe you could save a few bucks, but then you're talking about Jaden Daniels hasn't gotten paid that big contract yet, so maybe now is the time that you're able to do that. But to send the right message, so guys like Bobby Wagner and guys like Zach Ertz that in the future, maybe, hey, there's free agents that you want to bring in like that, you're sending the right message to the guys in that locker room that, hey, when you have a guy that produces, that does everything the right way, we take care of that guy.
Right. Well, to me, it's not so much about Bobby Wagner and Ertz, guys who are at the end of their career. It's more about the younger guys on this team. What are you telling Brandon Coleman? What are you telling Sanger still? You know what I mean? Guys like that are going to be part of the future here, long term. Those are the guys that are looking at this and going, well, what are you going to do with him? Because I'm coming up soon. You know what I mean? You gotta show me what you're going to do when it's my turn to get a contract. You know what I mean? What are you telling Quan Martin and guys like that? That, to me, those are the guys to me that are going to be looking at this. The ones that are 25 and under and going, all right, what are you going to, he's been the guy here. What are you going to do for me when it's my turn? And so that's where I think I would be paying attention if I'm a young guy, or a younger guy, I guess I would say, that is going to get another contract or two in this league before it's over. And I want to know how you're going to handle my situation when it's my turn if you lowball Terry McLaurin. So to me, that's where it would become very problematic. You don't want to start being the team that doesn't pay its guys when it's time to pay the guys. It doesn't mean you have to pay everybody, but you have to pay the right guys. And again, if it's not Terry McLaurin, who the hell is it?
David, fantastic as always. Really appreciate the time today. Thank you.
All right, guys. My pleasure.
There he goes. That is David Aldridge of The Athletic.